Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Danielle Casey with the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. We will be starting the formal webinar program momentarily. In the meantime, I have a few quick housekeeping notes for you. This webinar will be recorded. So following today's program, we will be sending a post-webinar survey that will include a link to the recording. If anyone has any technical issues or just general questions, please utilize the chat function in your Zoom toolbar. If you have any questions for a speaker, please submit it using the Q&A tool. That will help us ensure that we get to any and all questions, and any that we possibly don't get to during the broadcast today, we could potentially follow up on with additional answers later on. Supervisor Mike Leahy of Yuba County will be joining us very shortly. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is toss this over to get things started to our guest facilitator today. She's going to be moderating the panel. Her name is Brenda Stranix. Most of the audience today probably knows her and all the wonderful work she does in the county and in the community. She's the president for the Yuba Sutter Economic Development Corporation. Brenda has held this distinction since 2000. As a lifelong Yuba resident, she's passionate about bettering her community through public works and creating opportunities for not only herself, but of course for the community and giving back. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brenda, and we may also add in some additional comments from Supervisor Leahy in a few moments. Brenda, it's all yours.
Thank you, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being on the webinar this afternoon. Instead of formal presentations, today we're going to focus on hearing from experts across various industries that are on the call today. And they're going to provide some updates on their respective industries regarding the impacts of COVID-19 and to answer some specific questions that we've heard repeatedly from local businesses while providing resources and guidance to those that need it most within the community. First, we will welcome a panel of experts and let them all give a very quick, brief 10-minute or so update, and then we'll transition to a Q&A portion where we will be answering some of the commonly received questions, and we'll also open the floor to all of you for your questions. If you have a question during any time in the program, as Danielle said, use the chat box, the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. So today's speakers will include Mario Ubaldi, Director of Customer Service with SizeUp, Jamie Drewer, Partner at Donny Brown, Todd Stem, sorry Todd, Senior Vice President with CBRE, which is the real estate experts, and Mark Bertha, President of Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Sacramento at Fire Mountain, that happens to be located right here in beautiful Yuba County. So our first speaker is Mario. Mario is the Director of Customer Success for SizeUp, a new free online tool developed by GIS Planning and now offered by GSEC as a free resource to the Greater Sacramento existing and aspiring business community. During his career, he has managed top global accounts such as Xerox and led the implementation teams for Pike Energy, the nation's largest specialty construction and engineering firm serving the electric power industry. And SAS Software, the largest privately held software firm in the world. He has also been doing stand-up comedy. Maybe this will be a lot more fun than we thought, where he has performed at Punchline, Ha Ha Cafe, the Ice House, Cobb's, and Sony's Metron Theater. He is an alumni of Harvard University and the University of California at Berkeley. Welcome, Mario.
And Brenda, this is Danielle. Before Mario just completely tears us up with laughter and educates us on tools, I wanted to, Supervisor Leahy was able to get his connection working, so we certainly wanted to toss it back to him very quickly.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Danielle. One of the big things we have about this whole situation of this stay at home and craziness is that most of all of our meetings are run on informational panels like this one. And sometimes you get in right, sometimes you don't get in right. I wanted to say that it's not only a pleasure working with Greater Sacramento Economic Development, but it's one of the benefits to our local communities, Yuba and Sutter, is that they're focused on our success, and they're going to help us with such great speakers that are going to happen today. So if you're listening to this live, that's great. If you're listening to us on a later broadcast, that's great too, because a lot of people ended up with, it's not like nothing was happening right now. We just went through being the first counties to try to open, and we were a little bit beleaguered, and we had a bunch of things going on. So I'd like to welcome our speakers, and thanks again, Brenda. You make a big difference in the community, and I wanted to thank you personally. So if you can go ahead and introduce our first speaker just with a normal introduction there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Supervisor Leahy. Mario, are you ready to crack us up here?
Well, if there is time, I certainly have some jokes prepared, but normally this is a half-hour presentation, and so I want to make sure that we have time for everyone to get the information they need, and then I can share jokes with you all. Fair enough. Let me know if everyone is seeing the Greater Sacramento SizeUp screen.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. So one of the things that I should point out, you certainly mentioned the colleges I went to, but what wasn't mentioned is that I am also a Sacramento area kid. I grew up in South Sacramento, and I played the Yuba City Honkers 4 years of my high school life as a Florin Panther and Valley High Viking. So I'm intimately familiar with your area, and so as such, I want to try to make this as contextual as possible. So one of the things I want to do is talk very briefly about what SizeUp is. SizeUp is a business intelligence tool that most enterprise businesses, your really large businesses, will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they'll have dedicated analysts or consulting companies. SizeUp is putting the power of enterprise level business analytics in the hands of small and medium-sized businesses. Let me show you how that works. So we can choose any industry in any location in the Sacramento region. Now, obviously, we could have, of course, choose Sacramento or West Sacramento, but thinking about my high school days, I'm going to go ahead and select Yuba City. And as a father of 2 young daughters, I can tell you I'm always thinking about coffee and where I can get my caffeine. So I'm going to go ahead and put in that industry, coffee, and in Yuba City. And what's going to happen is SizeUp's going to crunch millions of data points to make this a unique analysis for Yuba City. So if I was starting my coffee shop in Yuba City and I was just trying to figure out how much I would have to make, I'm going to go ahead and put in $275,000, and we'd actually see if I was only planning to have a coffee shop that was generating revenue of $275,000, it actually would be far under what the average coffee shop is for Yuba City, which you can see is $721,000. And then for the county, in the MSA, you can also see the variables. So let's boost this up because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm getting an idea of what it needs, what it's going to take to be successful, or at least average within the community. So I'm going to go ahead and boost this up to $700,000. And you can see that the percentile will change based on the information that we have. So the other thing that we need to consider is what type of industry are we in? Let's say that I was an existing business as opposed to an entrepreneur, and I started my business in 2012. Now you can actually start to see the trends within the coffee industry, both at a national and a regional level. So if we were looking at, say, something like video rental stores, we might see a completely different chart as all of those blockbusters are going out of business and no new businesses are coming to replace them. So at my coffee shop, I'm going to assume that I have paying my employees a certain wage, let's say maybe $25,000. And we'll actually see that at $25,000, that's a very generous wage for a coffee shop. Now, maybe my model is different. Maybe instead of being a coffee shop where I'm trying to do a whole bunch of volume, maybe I'm in the third wave specialty coffee business. So I have higher paid employees. And as you can see, we'd be 66% above average at a $25,000 salary. So let me assume that I'm going to have 6 employees. And I think we could all agree that that's a small business. But using data, we actually get insight into how small of a business. 6 employees in Yuba City is actually less than half the size for the number of employees in the average coffee shop in Yuba City. And now we can start to see information in terms of employees, and cost effectiveness and revenue per capita. I'm going to move very quickly because this is normally about a 30-minute demo and we have about 10 minutes. So one of the things that this also can help us understand is, what is our situation? Maybe I'm losing an employee a year. That actually would be very excellent, because in this specific business, it's usually about a 13% turnover rate. So by having fewer employees and paying them more, it actually shows my business model, the one that I am working with, is effective. You can also compare healthcare costs and workers' comp. And in just a few minutes, if I click on summary view right here at the bottom, you can actually see a snapshot view of how my business is performing in the local economy. There are more detailed videos and tutorials on this feature, but because of the short time, I just want to take you right to the next tool. So why don't we change this up a little bit? And instead of looking at coffee shops, I know that some of us, certainly not me, were worried about not being able to get a haircut during the pandemic. But instead of a coffee shop, maybe I am thinking about starting a beauty salon, because we know that there's going to be a lot of demand coming out of the pandemic. So here, what I've done now is I've mapped all of the locations for beauty salons within Yuba City. And you can start to see where they're located and maybe where I would want to consider understanding where they are in relationship to other factors, like where are the customers? So maybe I am a beauty salon that's going to cater towards professionals. So I might want to identify where the offices of attorneys are. So I can actually see where, on these green dots, where the attorneys are. And I can also add in other industries or other categories to my analysis. Because as we know, I'm a man, maybe I would go to a beauty shop because I have 2 daughters and a wife and we all want to go to the same place. But perhaps I also want to go to a barber shop. Oops. There we go. And so now I've mapped additional competitors that maybe I want to locate next to them. Maybe it's a barber shop and I think they need a beauty salon. Or again, maybe I need to understand the context in which I'm operating. The other thing that I want to know is, where can I get supplies for my beauty shop? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the suppliers tab. And I'm going to look at beauty supplies. And now I'm looking at wholesalers. And obviously there are some in Yuba City, but I want to look at it from a regional perspective. So I've zoomed out and now I am seeing the larger area. And I can even look at spending on personal care. And I could even, as I said, it's a beauty salon. So instead of looking at it for men, I'm going to go ahead and look at it for females. And so now I'm seeing that information in terms of where spending is. So 2 major answers to our questions about how should my business perform or how is it performing, along with what is the unique context, not generic, but specific to my business, is happening here in the Yuba Sutter area. So the things that we need to identify is, how is our business performing? What is the nature of our business with our competitors, our partners, our possible target market? And so this I'm going to do with the advertising tool. So I'm looking now at beauty salons in the Yuba City area based on total revenue. But perhaps what I'm trying to do is identify areas that are underserved, places where people need beauty services. So I can select this filter and look at most underserved markets. And again, we're looking at professionals. So we can add additional filters, you can see via the filters tab, and this will dynamically change to represent the characteristics of the target market that we want. Mass media is not a thing anymore. It is targeted marketing that allows our businesses to be successful. So in this case, again, I was looking for professionals. So now I want to target zip codes that have at least 25% bachelor's degrees. And you can now see how the map dynamically changed represents those new zip codes here. So a very brief overview of SizeUp. I know that there's a lot of valuable information that you need to get from the other speakers. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. And then I believe we're going to have the ability to take questions, or I can take questions online as we go through. Danielle has created a fantastic video that you can see on the Greater Sacramento site. And we also have videos on YouTube and on Vimeo that if you have more time, I invite you to ask. And of course, my contact information is here as well. I invite all of you to reach out to me if you have any further questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mario. What a great little tool we have available. I can't wait to get in there and play with it a bit. Really appreciate your time. So our next speaker is Jamie Dreyer. He is a partner with Dunny Brown, LLP law firm. From a practice perspective, Jamie advises and represents debtors, creditors, committees, and both secured and unsecured creditors, including public entities, in financing restructuring, commercial litigation, and planning for and navigating complex corporate reorganizations. Through his practice, Jamie becomes intimately involved in a daily financial and operational concerns for his clients in a wide array of industries. He also represents banking, financial institutions, and other lenders in protecting their collateral through receiverships and receivers in their capacity as court-appointed fiduciaries in both California and Nevada. Jamie is also proud to serve his time as the firm's pro bono partner coordinator and oversees the firm's efforts to provide pro bono legal services to people and nonprofits in need. Recently, Jamie has spearheaded firm outreach efforts to coordinate and participate in weekly webinars focusing on issues of immediate concern, including workplace policies for clients, the community, and the firm itself, and managing a business in these turbulent times. Jamie serves clients throughout California, Nevada, and nationally. Thanks for being here, Jamie.
Of course. Thank you, Brenda. And I also want to thank GSIC for having me and putting on these programs, and also Sutter Yuba Economic Development. I'm especially appreciative of the fact that this webinar is focused on Yuba and Sutter counties. My firm and me have a great relationship with the government agencies in Sutter and Yuba counties, and we have incredibly strong relationships in the agriculture and food processing industry in those counties where some of our most valued clients reside. So you may have gathered a little bit from that introduction that most of my day job is counseling businesses in trouble. I'm actually not going to talk about that today for a couple of reasons I'll describe. First of all, if anybody's wondering, I'll just tell you that we are not right now seeing a huge uptick in failing businesses. Right now, people are treading water. Right now, people are taking opportunity of government assistance and economic stimulus programs. And frankly, through presentations and meetings and groups like these, trying to work together to address the current upheaval, coming together and trying to think creatively about how to engage going forward, reopen, and keep the engine of commerce going. So with respect to bankruptcy filings, there have been obviously some very large bankruptcy filings in the news in the retail and airline industry. Those don't necessarily hit our region too hard, at least those cases aren't here, but I'm not seeing any economic or pandemic related cases, at least in the insolvency area and being in the courts here. Most of the current work still is related to what I call situational problems. So all that said, what I am going to talk about today on a more positive note, and frankly, what a lot of us here have been focused on over the past couple of weeks, is helping folks navigate current economic stimulus package issues. I'm going to address some very specific issues that over the past 2 weeks and days, we've had dozens of clients reach out to us to address surrounding PPP loan funding issues, a couple of tax issues, and some things like that. So I'm going to be jumping around a little bit. These are just specific questions that have come up for us. So first of all, you may have seen a lot in the news that with respect to the certification required in order to obtain and retain PPP loan funds, that the business filing the application must certify that the loan is necessary as a result of economic uncertainty. So that's been a grave concern to a lot of our clients and borrowers, and maybe some of you on the line over the past couple of weeks. Well, what does that mean? So some initial guidance came out from Treasury that talked about access to other capital, size of your enterprise, things like that. Well, that's kind of difficult to work with. You probably saw some press about larger institutions and publicly traded companies returning funds, taking some hits in the press. Fairly or not, I don't really have an opinion on, but there has been a lot of uncertainty about this issue. Just, I believe, Wednesday afternoon, I should say, Treasury did publish further guidance, and I'm just going to quote, that says, any borrower that together with its affiliates received PPP loans with an original principal amount of less than $2 million will be deemed to have made the required certification concerning the necessity of the loan request in good faith. So what that means is, if you got a PPP loan for less than $2 million, don't worry about that certification. You are covered. If you got a PPP loan for larger than $2 million, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to worry. It does mean that at some point, I don't know when Treasury or SBA may be asking some questions that you may have to document. And I think it's always been published that they are going to be specifically scrutinizing loans over $2 million. A couple of other and a little bit of data about the status of the PPP loan funds. It looks like there was some decrease in demand over the last week, maybe as a result of people not knowing that whether funds are available, having previously applied, and perhaps uncertainty about the economic uncertainty certification. But as I understand, as of a little bit of data for you, as of Sunday night, at least from the last tranche of funding, $188 billion had been approved across about 2.5 million loans. So there still appears to be, as of a few days ago, $100 billion available in round two. So if you haven't applied and you're uncertain about whether to, subject to the forgiveness requirements that I'm not really going to get into, there's money out there to support your enterprise, and I suggest you jump on it because there's money still there. It's not too late. I saw some data saying the average loan from the last tranche was $73,000. So these are smaller businesses. The big businesses went first, but there is still money available. Okay, I will make one comment on a specific question. People are asking about the forgiveness calculation and component on the PPP loan, which is what happens, how do you certify and how do you meet the requirement regarding employees won't come back to work. So the question is, will the loan forgiveness amount be reduced if the borrower laid off an employee, offered to rehire the same employee, but the employee declined the offer? And most recently, as of, I believe it was Wednesday, Treasury published guidance that said, no, you will be allowed to exempt that amount from the potential forgiveness calculation for laid off employees whom the borrower offered to rehire at the same wages and number of hours, and the employee refused. So that should give some people a little bit of comfort on the forgiveness issue. Another issue that people are struggling with that isn't resolved, and I'll just give you a little quick update, which is tax issues related to PPP loan funds. So first of all, the loan funds themselves are not taxable as income. So that's good. But an issue that's percolating that is not resolved that you may have heard about, that we're getting questions about, relates to the deductibility of expenses paid with PPP loan funds. As recently as Wednesday, IRS said that to the extent that business expenses are paid with PPP loan funds, those expenses aren't otherwise deductible from income, right? Because the loan amount itself and the forgiven loan amount is not taxable. So the IRS would view that as kind of double dipping. Well, people are up in arms in that, with that. Senator Grassley introduced a bill this week to clarify or to request or to overrule that IRS ruling. And I don't really know the exact status of that, except it is part of a current bill that is pending today in the House, on which the House is voting, and I just checked before the webinar. I don't know the status, but there's a provision of that current legislation today, which probably won't be passed in exactly the same form, that overrules that IRS decision. I'm not sure where I am on time. I think I'm getting close. Just as a lawyer, I should let you guys know with respect to the court system in Yuba and Sutter counties. Yuba and Sutter County Superior, as of today, are fairly open. Sutter County Superior, we haven't seen any published guidance, but there should be a notice coming out this week. They have been accepting filings. The court is open today. We have hearings actually in Sutter County Superior next week, and similarly with Yuba County Superior. Federal courts are kind of open, kind of not. They're not open to the public, but they're still processing work. Bankruptcy courts are open and full speed ahead. And with maybe a minute left, I will make a pitch and throw out a thought for anybody, which is I just became aware of in my capacity as the pro bono coordinator at my law firm, that legislation has passed through the state pursuant to the CARES Act, actually is where the funding is coming from, providing one-time state-funded disaster relief assistance to undocumented adults. To be eligible, you have to be an undocumented adult over 18, not otherwise eligible for other COVID-19 or CARES Act funds, and have experienced a hardship as COVID-19. If you know any of these folks, if in your community or related to your business, get them this information and have them contact California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. I can push this information out later on in the webinar, but it's just something I wanted to throw out there for everybody's consideration. I think I'm at my time, so I'm going to end there, and I'll be around to answer any questions or have further discussion later in the hour. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jamie. I know it's like drinking from a fire hose to try to understand what's happening and how quickly it's all moving, so we appreciate your update. Our next speaker is Todd Stem Filippo. Sorry, Todd, I knew I was going to mess up your last name. Driven by his passion for excellence and fueled by his expansive market knowledge, Todd's aggressive sales record earned him the CBRE Rookie of the Year Award in Roseville and top 5 producer recognition every year since 1996. Holy cow. He has also received recognition from the Sacramento Association of Commercial Real Estate, ACRE, as the region's #1 industrial broker 10 times over in the past 18 years. Todd has completed more than 1,800 transactions, most of which have been within the Greater Sacramento region, where Todd has come to be recognized as a market expert. He has sold more than 16 million square feet of industrial property and closed over 120 parcels of land. Thanks for being here, Todd.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think today what I'd like to touch on is partially the future of office space, but I think more in the near term, maybe what we're going to expect as we try to re-enter the workforce and go back to our offices or our warehouse space or our production facilities. And, you know, what might we expect? It still is a moving target. There's no specific one playbook or right way to go about it. A lot of it's going to be common sense. But I think, you know, one thing for certain is it's the reentry process of employees back to the workplace is going to occur in a gradual, phased manner. It's both going to be dictated geographically and, you know, within multi-tenant buildings as companies come back online. And a lot of the decision-making of how and when to re-enter will be based upon individual business plans and timelines and very unique sets of circumstances. There's going to be very unique challenges that landlords and tenants and property managers are all going to need to navigate together. It's really going to be a team effort for everybody, and the employee plays a big part of that as well. You know, tenants are going to need to kind of determine their own thresholds and policies for welcoming their employees back, as well as customers and visitors. Some of the key factors are going to include the location of your place of work and the physical makeup to be able to support social distancing and frequent cleaning. You know, the availability of testing and monitoring of employees, for COVID-19 symptoms will be important and critical. And I think every business is going to need to provide, reliable sanitizing supplies and protective equipment. The availability of that is still a little bit in question. And then, of course, we're all continuing to watch regulatory compliance requirements and what those might further impose upon us as we try to go back to work. First, planning for reentry is very complex. It's not straightforward. As I mentioned, every building and business will have a unique set of circumstances to consider. For example, are you on the first floor of a suburban office space with an open parking lot and private restrooms in your space? Or are you possibly in a 2 or 3 story building with employees that use public transportation and a parking garage, and then have to share an elevator to get to your place of work, and maybe you're sharing multiple stall common area restrooms? Those are all unique things. Or possibly you're driving a forklift in and out of a warehouse all day, and you're sharing that forklift with others, and there's perspiration issues as you're in and out during the hot summer months. So it's complex as everybody really gets back to work. For multi-story buildings, frequent elevator cleaning will be required, especially on the call buttons. But moisture could impact their function, so possibly replaceable sheet plastic will be used to facilitate the cleaning of the call buttons without moisture intrusion. That's one very small detail of hundreds, if not thousands, of things that will have to be thought through as everybody goes back to work, and we need to consider the things that we used to take for granted. Touchless water and soap dispensers will become a very common conversion in most restrooms and break rooms. And we need to think about the ability to increase hot water capacity in break rooms and restrooms as well. Tenants may arrive back to work to find that every other chair in their conference room has been removed. Possibly the coworker they used to sit next to is not next to them anymore, or they're several feet away, or they're across the office because that's what was needed for social distancing. Business owners should anticipate a workforce that will expect really credible assurances that they're working in a safe environment. It'll be helpful for the employer to provide clear displays of updated safety and health and wellness information, and provide really good resources for employees and visitors that address all phases of their day, from inside and outside of the workplace, from when they first arrive to when they leave. Establish stations at key locations throughout the premises to provide items such as hand sanitizers and wipes, masks and gloves, and a safe disposal option for the items are going to become very common. Again, we need to know that we have a sustainable supply of those items as well. Early lessons, and this is nothing new, have indicated that bringing back the workforce full throttle is unwise and inconsistent with most public health guidance. And common wisdom is that it's best to establish a phase plan that enables increasing numbers of people to return to the workplace over time. Many employers used a split and staggered shift strategy along with a work from home option during the early days of the pandemic before formal shelter in place was dictated. A similar approach may be a consideration for a stage reentry process. Some are back to work, some are from home, some have specific days that they work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, others are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And it's a good entree to the fact that, expanding the workday hour for early and evening shifts may be what we need to do. It could be that there is a morning shift and an afternoon shift or an evening shift, even for traditional administrative office functions. And maybe those workdays start to include a weekend so that the same work can be done, but over a longer period of time with a less dense employee population under roof. And again, we all have to just figure out how to support appropriate social distancing. That's going to be very common inside of the office space, which means that many offices may have to reconfigure their layout. Those that have lots of private offices might fare better than those that work in an open communal workspace or workstation type environment. Break rooms and other communal areas could see limited access or could be deemed off limits for a period of time. And similar to elevator call buttons, as I mentioned earlier, plastic adhesive sheets that are easily cleaned might start appearing on copy machine buttons, door handles, common coffee makers. There's just lots of thought that needs to be put into hygiene and keeping everyone safe in the workplace. You may find that you're going to be attending Zoom meetings in your office that includes 5 or 10 people that are only sitting 20 feet away from you, but that's the better and safer alternative than everyone convening inside of a conference room. I'm very confident that we can all return to work safely. I'll share with you a couple of stories of a few of my clients that have stayed open through shelter in place. They were essential businesses and kind of what they did to keep a safe environment. The first is an administrative office business that has 15 employees, and they've remained open throughout the entire pandemic. But due to the fact that everyone has a private office and they had 2 separate private restrooms inside of their office space and were a first floor, social distancing and safe practices were facilitated. There wasn't a lot of employee interaction face to face, but they could arrive at work, close their door, work their day, use restrooms as needed. They took time and had a routine for that, and that worked out well for them, and they've had no incidences of COVID-19. The other one of my clients is in a completely different industry, and they're a light manufacturer using a warehouse property, and they've kept open and they've been full throttle. However, they took a moment pause and were very innovative, and I give credit to the business owner, very intuitive as to what we were about to face. But he sat his employee staff down and they rearranged the work floor so that everyone's workspaces out on the warehouse floor were at least 6 feet apart. They removed all their break room tables and replaced them with very small individual cafe style tables so people would eat lunch by themselves instead of at a communal table. And they have a meeting every morning. They start the day with a reminder of good hygiene practices. They have specific time set for hand washing, and everyone wears a face mask when they're on the floor. And there's just general, respect and courtesy shown and common sense. And this employer of 40 light manufacturing employees has not had a single incidence of COVID-19. So it shows that getting back to the workplace and working can be done. It can be done safely. Obviously, it's much easier to be safe at home versus out in the public. Therefore, in the end, the largest burden is on all of us, the employee, to be very aware of what we touch, come into contact with, and continue to use the same safeguards that we do now with covering our mouths when coughing, sneezing, maintaining social distancing within the office or the warehouse workplace. I know that in my work day, I've created my own what I call COVID kit that I keep on the passenger side of my car. So being in commercial real estate, I spend a lot of time leasing property to business owners and getting out and showing space and touring space. So I'm picking up keys and touching door handles and numerous light switches. And what I've come to just make common habit is wiping down everything I touch in and out of a space. I wipe down keys, I wipe down my car handle. I kind of backtrack everything. At first it was burdensome. Now it's just very much second nature. And I think as long as when we get back to the workplace, we all can keep those habits and not go back to what used to be natural, I think we can create a very safe environment. It will be interesting. And although, in Yuba and Sutter, similar to much of Sacramento, that's more of a rural community, we've all had fewer incidences of COVID-19 relative to our population. I think our work environments are going to be more conducive to maintaining social distancing, and we'll have a little bit easier time of getting back to work and creating a safe environment versus a downtown population like San Francisco. If you can imagine, having to ride an elevator up to the 50th floor of a high-rise office building, that has its own set of circumstances that, in our region, in our Central Valley, we won't necessarily be dealing with, which is good. But again, how we use our office spaces, how we use our warehouse spaces, how employees interact with one another, will change, it will evolve. And it's going to be very interesting, but it's also going to, put forth a lot of creative thought. And I'm really intrigued to see the innovation that's going to come out of this as we create a safer work environment. But I'm happy to take questions or touch on anything else from the group or the audience today, but I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much, Todd. We appreciate you being here, and I'm sure there'll be some questions here in a few minutes. We have one last speaker this afternoon, and then we'll go into that question and answer period. And I'm going to take a quick minute to introduce Mark Bertha. Mark is currently with the Hard Rock International as president of Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Sacramento at Fire Mountain. And as I said earlier, proudly right here in Yuba County. Couldn't be more jazzed about that. As an executive with the iconic brand, Bertha is responsible for operations of Northern California's premier gaming, dining, and entertainment destination and its team members. In addition, he manages the relationship between the Enterprise Rancheria tribe, who owns the project, and the Seminole tribe of Florida, the partner and owner of Hard Rock International, as well as future expansion and development related to the 900-acre sports and entertainment zone the property sits on. Prior to this, he was the president of Hard Rock Rocksino in Northfield Park, the #1 performing gaming property in Ohio. He led the property up to its acquisition by MGM Growth Properties for $1 billion in the summer of 2018. Before joining Hard Rock International, Bertha was vice president and general manager with Stations Casinos, the leading provider of gaming and entertainment in the greater Las Vegas area, where they own and operate 9 major hotel casino properties. Prior to Station, Bertha was president of Soul Casinos and the AVA Amphitheater in Tucson, Arizona, where he focused on the strategic vision for the organization and had general management responsibilities for the operation of Casino del Sol, Casino of the Sun, and the 5,000-seat AVA Amphitheater. In addition, he oversaw the design, construction, and operations of Casino del Sol's $130 million 4-star, 4-diamond hotel resort expansion development. A highly regarded gaming and hospitality executive with over 25 years of experience, Bertha's career has spanned both operations and development at the leading casino and hotel companies, including Mirage Resorts, Las Vegas Sands, Marriott International, and Starwood. Bertha graduated from the Hotel School at Cornell University with a Bachelor of Science degree and is a Merrill Presidential Scholar. Welcome, Mark. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Barry, for having us today. I think my bio is longer than my presentation, so I'll have to work on that. Good afternoon, Yuba Sutter, from right here at 40 Mile Road. On behalf of our 1,300 team members, Hard Rock International, and our ownership, the Enterprise Rancheria Tribe, it's truly a pleasure to be with you all today to provide our update about the Hard Rock Hotel Casino Sacramento at Fire Mountain and hospitality industry. First and foremost, we hope that everybody on this call is safe and healthy, and we wish the best to you, your families, and your employees during this unprecedented time. Given the unique position we're in today, I just want to, for purposes of the call, provide a high-level overview of our business status and activities to date, the impact on the local economy, and our next steps on our road to reopening. You know, for us, 2020 was a story of our business growing. We started the year off with a successful New Year's Eve promotion and first quarter that had significant promotions and advertising, F&B offerings, a hotel running at 98.2% occupancy, events and entertainment, resulted in driving close to 500,000 people to our county and through our doors in less than 79 days. About half of those people visiting us were within 30 miles of the property, but what's more impressive is 25% of those total guests were actually coming from more than 120 miles away. So we were fulfilling our commitment to be a regional destination and grow our overall marketplace. March was really performing very well, up through March 19th. That progress and performance was manifested actually in the acknowledgement that our property was recognized as a nominee for Condé Nast Traveler's 2020 Reader's Choice Award for Best Hotel in the World. We'll make sure to send you all a link so you can vote for a great property right here in our own region. Of course, that changed with the rest of the world. We suspended our operations at 5 p.m. on Friday, March 20th, within 24 hours of the governor's statewide shelter-in-place mandate. It's funny, we opened in October of last year, and I confidently said that the building would never close again. So in fact, we didn't even have any locks on our doors. So clearly we're scrambling to take care of our temporary closure. So what have we been up to during this closure period? Like most other hospitality businesses, we already had appropriate protocols in place prior to closure. But over this time period, we've been continuing to focus on an even more aggressive plan to develop the right way to reopen with a robust health and safety plan for our guests and team members. The Enterprise Rancheria leadership and our management have been in constant contact with the Governor's Office, the Tribal Gaming Association of California, and Yuba Sutter health officials for guidance and support. We've developed a comprehensive plan that we call Good, Clean, Fun. And I think some of this will be reflective of what's going on in the hospitality industry. We're going to be implementing things, including we've done a completely significant deep clean of our entire building. We've implemented what we call our Safe and Sound Health and Wellness Plan, which will require temperature checks for entry for guests and team members. The requirement that all guests and team members will be wearing masks while on property. Team members in front-facing positions will use gloves and even face masks as needed. Social distancing will be achieved via, for us, reduced slot and table game positions, reduced restaurant seating, and reduced overall occupancy. Our ATMs and cash centers are being relocated to kind of spread the floor out, and we're going to have markers on the floor that separate people by the 6-foot requirement throughout the property. We're having the implementation of disposable menus and condiments upon request in our dining venues, as well as the reduction of hotel room interfaces, including turn-down service, valet, and room service in some cases. We're installing plexiglass shields in our guest interaction windows that include our front desk, our casino cage, restaurant host stands, potentially even plexiglass in between slot machines and in table games to allow us to increase our occupancy there. Our ballroom area will temporarily host a wild card, our players club, so we can space people out. It'll even be our temporary employee cafeteria, and we're putting offices in there to continue to spread people out. We're doing routine cleaning in all areas by hour and high touch points, as well as by shift and daily in all parts of the building. We have implemented our clean team. These are employees who are designated individuals in bright colored shirts whose only focus is on performing regular cleaning throughout the property. We'll probably be reopening in phases with areas including our valet, our fitness center, and our pool and the buffet coming online at the appropriate time in the future. This is just a fraction of more than 38 pages of enhanced initiatives that we have implemented to ensure the highest level of safety for everyone. After 5 months of our guest experience being open, it gave us a great time to get the feedback to make some changes while we've been closed. I know a number of other hospitality operators have taken this time to retool their businesses. For us, we've focused on our restaurants, for example. We have new menus and hours of operation in our Council Oak Steak and Seafood, in our in-room dining, and our Constant Grind Grab and Go venue. We'll be introducing a full-service breakfast menu in our Hard Rock Cafe, which our guests were requesting every day. We're reworking our buffet line, making improvements in there to offer a better program when we do reopen the doors. We're going to be announcing shortly that we're going to be adding first responders to our Rockstar Salute program to recognize all their efforts during this time of crisis. This is all part of a program we call You Sang We Listened, which is a guest experience program that we know our patrons will value when we reopen. We continue to speak with our partners like Live Nation, who operate the Toyota Amphitheater next door. Obviously, they've been postponing and rescheduling shows, and we're going to work with them to salvage the remainder of the season going forward at the amphitheater. Our efforts are similar to what other hospitality businesses here and around the world are reconditioning to reopen for our new normal. So what's the impact to our community? We as Hard Rock, we live by 4 mottos. The first is take time to be kind. I can't begin to tell you how important it's been right now to support our community. And that means for us, philanthropic efforts on behalf of our property and our ownership, the Enterprise Rancheria Tribe. These contributions include $100,000 of PP&E, our favorite term nowadays, personal protective gear that we donated to local hospitals, including Adventist Rideout Medical Hospital in Marysville. $12,000 in perishable foods were donated locally. $100,000 in tribal food donations to elders and community members. We're giving out $100 grocery gift cards to many of our team members who have been hardest hit by this crisis. We even partnered with NBC 10 and their Giving Tuesday program to support the United Way. That for us equals almost $500,000 in relief efforts here locally. Our second motto is all is one. Our team members are our most essential asset at Hard Rock Hotel Casino Sacramento at Fire Mountain. So for us, we've continued payroll and benefits programs for our team members. We've kept our team members engaged and informed throughout our closure. We've held daily virtual sound checks online, provided online guest service training, business and life skill classes, and even offered a hospitality online certification program with Florida Atlantic University. Our third motto is love all, serve all. We have over 200 Hard Rocks around the world. And as a company, we've been active with close to $6 million in charity efforts. Donations to the Red Cross, to Why Hunger, 350,000 bars of soap have been donated to clean the world, and $250,000 in grants to 50 communities around the country to support their efforts. The fourth motto, ironically, is save the planet. And even in this time of crisis, we all seem to be contributing to this motto around the world. So where are we today? We have now entered week 8 of our shutdown, and we'd like to clearly state again that our closure was a precautionary measure, as there have been no reported cases of COVID-19 at our property to date. We've been working with local, state, and national authorities, like many others in the hospitality business, to determine our potential reopening date. We've had a call with the governor on Monday coming up, and we hope to announce our reopening date after that call. Our owners made a commitment to this community right here to hire locally and to source locally. We employ close to 1,300 team members. 73% of them live in Yuba Sutter County. You can gauge the impact of what putting people back to work here will do to the local economy. We have dozens of local businesses, from the confections that we get from the candy box to the service we receive from Ecology, the local spiceries, secret ingredients in our burgers in the Hard Rock Cafe, the Bridge Coffee Company's unique blends, to the flowers that we have from the country florist. Even Frank M. Booth helped build this destination. We welcome those relationships, existing and new, and we will continue to help support our community, for we all rise together. We actually recently sent an email out to our entire database that featured a number of local businesses right here in our counties that are offering services during this closure. They're all part of this community effort to build a better village, and that means reinvestment, jobs, infrastructure, and growth. None of us know exactly what the new normal will be going forward. As a hospitality executive, I can tell you that tourism is one of the hardest hit, but it will rebound in time. It's a bit different scenario, and we will see regional travel stronger than domestic and clearly international in the short term. Business locally will respond first, but it will look different. People serving you at your restaurant will have gloves and maybe masks on and disposable menus, utensils and cups. That'll be the norm for a while. Every other slot machine for us and plexiglass barriers at your host stand or even at table games, and dealers offering you, hand sanitizer will be a new reality. Hotels limiting services and interactions will be regular. Some of these changes might be permanent, but the heart of hospitality experience will still thrive, and we will get to do what we enjoy with those we love to be with, and that's what matters. We were fortunate to hold the Yuba Sutter Chamber of Commerce annual gala on February 29th before we closed. It was actually the largest event that they've ever held in their history. We were celebrating the Roaring 20s, 1920, that is. At the gala, I had the opportunity to welcome the audience, and ironically, what I said that night, I think seems timelier now, months later. I want to leave you all with this thought. I would like to focus on what lies ahead over the next 100 years. What will the people in 2120 have to say about what we achieved and the stories we created? Nobody knows what tomorrow is going to look like. Here's what we do know. After every crisis, we bounce back. It's just a matter of how long. Whether it was the 80s, the early 2000s, 2008, we all need hope, but hope is not a strategy. I can't hope people come to my restaurant or hotel. I need to proactively make that happen. That's the time that we're in right now. The people of Yuba Sutter are some of the most resilient and down-to-earth people I have met in my travels. From issues with fires to issues with dams and pandemics, the people here in this region have seen crisis and hardship, and they continually prevail. Does it really surprise anyone that Yuba Sutter was one of the first counties to have the strength, the courage, and the sense in California to ease the restrictions? This is our time. We need a collective roundtable of leaders to rise together and form a vision for our future. We have those people, from business leaders like Montana Farms and Sierra Central Credit Union and Rideout Adventist, to partners with agencies like the Yuba Water Agency and the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, to connect with economic developers like Brenda, of course, and Mary Jane Griego and Marnie Sanders of the Chamber, to work closely with our Board of Supervisors, Assembly, mayors, and even Congressman Garamendi. The leader of one of the largest economies in the world, the governor of California, his office is only 30 minutes away from here. We've seen the growth of counties like Placer and Sacramento, and even now El Dorado is expanding. We have the roadmaps and the case studies right here in our backyard. The one thing I know for certain is that times of crisis often bring out the best in humanity and stronger leadership for the future. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today, and we wish you all the best in these challenging times. And we look forward to welcoming you back to the Hard Rock Hotel Casino very soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark. I know all of us here are super anxious to get back in and have a little fun. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box, so I know that a survey will be going out to all those on the call, and if you have anything in particular and want to direct it to any one of the presenters today, please do that. And please take the survey so we know that this information was pertinent or not, or if you'd like to hear of something else in the future. So now I'm going to wrap up today's program. It's my honor to pass this over to Dan Flores. Dan is a longtime Sutter County resident and a local business owner. He was elected to the Sutter County Board of Supervisors in the 2014 primary election and sworn into office in January 2015. Dan and his wife Tonya own and operate Cambridge Junior College, a small business that began in Yuba City in 1999. Together, they have built 2 successful businesses from the ground up in Yuba City. Sutter County has been a great place for Dan to live, work, succeed, and raise his family. Dan has served on the board of directors for the Yuba Sutter Chamber of Commerce and the Yuba Sutter Economic Development Corporation, among others. Dan is passionate about supporting economic development initiatives in the county. He is a strong supporter of public safety. He is keenly aware that government was created to protect the people and our great nation. Dan?
Hey, thank you, Brenda. Thank you for that introduction. You know, these are truly challenging times for all of us, and I couldn't have said it better than Mark did. You know, just that we have to work together as leaders and as our community to bring things back together. You know, I'm a small business owner, and I can truly relate to all that we're going through. But it's been great today just to have this information that's been presented to us. As we start to open up, I just want to encourage everybody listening and watching that it's really important that we continue to be cautious, you know, that we actually have a social responsibility to do so, to ensure the safety of our employees, to ensure the safety of our community, just to ensure the safety all the way around. So I'm confident, just like Mark mentioned there, I'm confident that we're going to get through all this and we're going to prevail and come out strongly in the end. And I'd just like to say thank you to the speakers that joined us today to provide their expert insights and all the advice that we received today. And additionally, I'd like to thank everyone who logged in and joined us today. Our goal with this webinar was to connect our Yuba Sutter residents, all of you, with the resources that will help you weather this storm. And we wish you the best, but we also know that we want you to know that we're here for you, here working for you, and we're available for you to answer any questions. Thank you very much.